that is watching out there in the universe or watching later on. My name is Seth Timmerman. I've been investing in real estate since 2019 or so. Um, I host a meetup here in Morgantown, West Virginia called Mountaineer RIA, where we get together every month. And that's what kind of brought this on. I met Ray one time and we decided that more than once a month was needed and let's put something on together. I actively invest in small to medium multifamily and do a lot of fix and flip here locally and run a wholesaling company in Virginia. And Ray's here with us as well.
What's up, everybody? From homes to over 100 doors. Each and every Tuesday, we come here and spread education, let you guys know what's going on in every space, real estate concern, and not just real estate, what's going on around the world. So appreciate everybody tuning in, being here, and taking time to learn something. We spend a lot of time getting these together and making sure they're organized and trying to bring value to you folks. So and we do these each and every Tuesday and Wednesday for you. So happy to have you all here.
Absolutely. In case any attorneys are watching here, the views and opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the host and guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any organization. Content provided is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional, legal, medical, or financial advice. Listeners are encouraged to conduct their own research and consult with appropriate professionals before making any decisions based on information provided in this podcast. Any reliance you place on such information is strictly at your own risk.
Yeah. So one of our favorite segments, the Gold Diggers. If anybody had any goals you guys wanted to accomplish or want to share, feel free to chime in. I'll share mine. One of the goals we had this year was one to purchase a buy and hold, which we kind of have lined up. And the other was to expand what we're doing on our flip and fix business. I want to get to, 2, 3 projects at a time. Right now we've been consistent with one project, and so finding guys to do that is going to be one of the biggest struggles. And finally, the storm has kind of opened up, and we're starting to get messages for guys to come join the team. So I'm pretty excited about that, and that's one of the goals I have this upcoming quarter. Anybody else have any goals they want to share?
I'll let everybody know. Obviously, you said we got a closing today, so that was great. Um, outside of that, sorry about that. Outside of that, I am leaving on Saturday morning, flying out to Dallas for the Investor Fuel, the mastermind that my Virginia-based company has been part of for quite some time now. So it was a really good opportunity to get out there and talk with people all across the country that are doing all different types of deals, from buy and hold to fix and flip to wholesale. Some people that are just getting started, and some people that are doing 200 and 300 transactions a year. So it's an amazing room to be in. I love it every time I get an opportunity to go. I'm looking forward to getting out there.
Awesome. Anybody else want to mention anything you guys want us to hold you accountable for? Going once, going twice. So, okay.
It's all that popped up today, and I think that like the commercial space, is specifically office space, has seen a huge decline since COVID and invention of things like, not the invention, but the modernization of things like Zoom, like what we're on here, and just a virtual workforce. And I mean, there's people in this room that have had been affected by the get back to work plan and different things like that, right? Um, but nonetheless, came on from CNBC saying that office demand has actually rebounded its highest level since COVID happened. So, and they're attributing, obviously, it's a lot more in the major metropolitan areas, but they're attributing a lot to AI and tech. Needed to be all in a centralized location and things like that to have their tech teams and people collaborating using AI and things of that nature. Um, so it was a pretty interesting topic. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever see office space be what it was in 2010, 2015. But seeing that it's coming back does absolutely change some of the dynamics in the commercial space for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of anxious to see what happens commercial wise, especially with everything we hear coming down the pipeline. Um, we just saw some massive layoffs like you mentioned, AI. Um, I think it, I think it booms, but it booms in a way that we haven't really seen, right? And it reinvents itself. I think there'll always be office space, so I think it'll just be reinvented for what it's used for, you know. So, um, again, in this area, we always teach buy when the market's in distress. So hopefully, a lot of people bought a lot of office space. I know buildings that were one time 200 million went for like 4 or 5 million. You know, so that's the opportunity. Try to find those opportunities in your area that make the most amount of sense.
Yep, absolutely. And then I don't have the article for this one, but with today's topic, I saw an article that popped up, and then it popped up. Somebody shared it on Facebook that it's a rising trend. He's the leader of the Virginia Landlords Alliance. He's kind of started that with a bunch of group landlords and investors in Central Virginia, and so they are 100% focused on the landlord tenant laws and lobbying and just all about buy and hold and that everything that's going on. He said one of the biggest things that they're seeing with all their property management companies that are part of the group and just in general is an uptick in um, this chargeback from tenants.
Yeah. Um,
Kind of
so
hidden risk, right? Something that people don't talk about a lot.
yeah, so part of the game of the streets, I stay knowledgeable to what the younger generation is doing. I'll say some of it is the younger generation because this is somewhat new. Welcome, Miss James. Somewhat new, but chargebacks. So and I know this for a fact, people would take vacations and then claim it as fraud, right? Or they would go to the store or the nightclub and claim it as fraud. I know recently, this is probably about a decade, it's probably been over a decade since I've been. And I went to a Vegas nightclub and they took our card and then they did a fingerprint, right? And I knew the purpose of the fingerprint. We weren't trying to steal our information. They were making sure that we didn't go back and charge it as fraud. So fraud has always been prevalent. People will always find a way to game the system. Okay. So you want to make sure that your systems, your processes are as good as they are going to be, and that you can control what the most. Because the last thing you want is that liability of, oh man, I thought I got paid. The tenant was here 3 months, and now I'm getting, my money's on hold. Okay. So rent collection in this day and age is not really under your control. A lot of people use payment systems. I use payment systems, and I highly recommend payment systems. Okay. I use Inago. If you guys want, I can share with you, but um, there is third party control. Inago is a controlling party of the money. I've had tenants who paid their rent maybe 3, 4 days ago, right? But it still hasn't hit my account because there is a hold on that money. So I'm not getting that money instantly. I have tenants that pay by check. I get that money the next day, right? So, but the harsh part is that the platforms can reverse transactions, right? It takes a little bit longer, sometimes a lot longer to know if the money is actually legitimately there. So I'll give you an example. I had a check hit my account, or they paid online through the platform. Platform cleared it, and then a couple days later, it reversed. So the money that I thought was there, it was about a $2,000 payment, then reversed and wasn't there. They pulled it back out of my bank account. The tenant's check bounced or whatever. Um, this is something that you have to be cautious of and cognizant of, especially if you're not paying attention. You might see, okay, my rent's paid, and then all of a sudden you forget about it, and then the tenant gets a month free, and then you're stuck without that money. It happens. Okay, so that's why I need you folks to pay attention. So collected rent isn't the end all be all. And then your certainty of like, okay, well, I got the cash flow. That's not 100% certain. You want to make sure that you can actually track and understand and see what's going on, right? And that's one of the good things about a good rental payment system. It'll let you know, right? You just need to be responsible, have somebody responsible that can track that.
They using something like, and it we kind of go into it throughout the slides, but using something like Inago protects you a lot more, and that kind of leads into a lot of the problems and things like that. Um, there's got to be a system and a process in place, right? Like in today's society, everything's about the 3 second attention span and getting things as easy as possible and automated as possible. And people don't want to do the work, right? And we see that all the time with contractors and stuff like that. Like people just don't want to do the work. So same thing with your tenants, right? Like if it's hard for them to do it, they don't want to do it. And sometimes they think, well, it's easy. Hey, Ray, I'll just shoot you a cash app, right? Like, hey, I'll just shoot you a cash app or something like that that's outside of the norm, that's not um, a part of that process.
Hmm.
Those are the transactions that are the quickest and easiest to find that chargeback happen.
Yeah. Um, so you need to be very cautious when it comes to those. Uh, but pretty much this is simply how the system works. You pretty much call your credit card company, especially with credit card. Debit card's a lot harder, right? People know that. So your credit card company, they'll just put a hold on it, right? They'll give you instant credit if you have a chargeback. If you win, then you keep the money. If they win, they keep the money. Um, but the funds are pretty much just pulled right back, and you're kind of just on hold. Um, One of the biggest things in being in the bar and restaurant industry as well is that um, when I still remember when we had to switch from the tap to pay to the old swipe system. I don't know if you folks remember, you used to have to swipe. Now you tap in, you insert your card. One of the biggest things that people were running around doing was they were swiping, and pretty much if you swipe, you were getting your money back, right? You could process it because it wasn't compliant. So that was one of the biggest things. So if you look, most of the time, it won't let you swipe your card now because it's not compliant. Um, that definitely favored the consumer. I lost many thousands of dollars because people knew about that system. They knew like, hey, I can just swipe it. Or the other system is manual card entry. And what that looks like is if they call and, hey, look, can you take my card number over the phone? They give you the card number, you type it in. They say, hey, look, somebody stole my card. I didn't order food from here. Right? I've confronted people face to face, like, yo, you told the company, I got the receipt, I got the video with you here. And credit card companies don't care. They usually rule in favor. You can send all that stuff. They'll send all that data. You'll send a picture of the guy drinking there. You'll send communication, and most of the time they'll still favor the client. Okay.
You think about like the advertisements for these credit card companies that you see on TV and Chase and all these different people as fraud protection, and like they talk about it all the time. Like it's all about consumer protection. It's not necessarily as much for the 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 client, the landlord, the provider's protection.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, you can go next slide, Seth. Um, it's the technology is something we got to be cognizant of. We all getting older, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not calling anybody old here. I feel old sometimes. We getting older. The new generation, they got some tricks up their sleeve. All right. So we gotta make sure that we are continually learning how to beat them at trying to beat the system. Um, One of the games other people used to play back in the day was they would give you a check. They knew the check was going to bounce. They'd send the rent check, or they send you the power bill, right? A check for the power bill. You couldn't cash it. That'd bother them a few days because you had to send it back to them. Then they'd send the rent. This is just a new game. Just a new game that they're playing out here. Um, the systems are there though, right? So people are using a lot of credit cards to pay their rent. All right. That's one of the biggest things that they're doing. They're using credit cards to pay their rent. Um, they understand the mechanisms usually better than you do. Okay. Um, the tenants are always going to have the protection, and reversing payments is pretty much, like I said, almost impossible. So you want to make sure that you are protected. There's even new systems I know that are big, just like the buy now, pay later, or the pay per. There are ways your tenants can pay every 2 weeks, right? Um, so having those types of systems are actually a benefit if used right, right? But somebody will figure out a way to game the system and make sure they make money back, and that you are stuck and left hanging. Because at the end of the day, they paint the landlords as the bad guys, right? We're the bad people. Um, Everybody in the industry, if you're a banker, if you're a landlord, if you're a realtor, you're a bad guy, right? So you want to make sure that you have the best technology to thwart what they are trying to do.
Full disclosure too, with the payment every 2 weeks and things of that nature, that could be a benefit for you as the landlord. Um, I talk about it all the time, and you like doing your mortgage payments and stuff like that. Split your mortgage payment in half, pay it every other Friday. You'll end up making an extra payment. It's 52 weeks in a year, so if you pay every 2 weeks, you make 26 half payments. That's more than 24 half payments. So instead of making $1,000 a month, paying $12,000 for the year, if you paid $500 every 2 weeks, you actually end up paying 1,300 or
13,000.
13,000 for the year. So
Yeah.
there is a way to do that and kind of make it out and make it better for everybody and make it more affordable and things like that. So I think the biggest thing with this stuff here is again like going away from the norm. I mean, you're not if they're paying if they're paying their bill on an AGA with a credit card, like there's still only a certain level of protection that can be put there, right? But making sure that everything's paid through a Naga or whatever rental system that you use and stuff like that, right? But having an actual system in place is what's important. When you start taking the one-offs and you start accepting Zelle 1 month and Venmo the next month, and then Cash App for half of it and Apple Pay for the other half of
It's
it, and
messy.
like that. I always tell my tenants, like, no, it's an accounting nightmare. So no, you're going to pay through our system. But it's an accounting nightmare, and they want it to be an accounting nightmare if they're actually going through this, right? They don't want you to be able to track where it's all coming from. Cash is great for you're never going to get charged back on cash, but again, cash you can't track, right? We want stuff that's trackable so that we can make sure we know where our money is and if we're profitable, if we're not, what changes we need to make and all that stuff.
Yeah. Agree. Uh, so this is one of the biggest issues, especially in this time. I know some landlords are cash strapped. Um, Lost rent is an issue, but the unpredictable cash flow of like knowing you got money and then all of a sudden knowing it's not there anymore. Right? You go to pay a bill, you go to do some CapEx, you go to put a new roof on or pay a maintenance guy because you think that money's there and it's gone. So that kind of splits up. It also is an accounting nightmare too. Just so you know, having to go back and your accountant's ask, hey, or your bookkeeper's asking, why is this payment here? This one is in the middle of the month. Usually rent should be paid by the fifth, so that becomes an issue too. Um, and then it slows down if your system isn't working properly, if you don't have the right protocol, there should be fees, there should be penalties for that bounce check. Is that in place? That's something that you want to check and know, like, hey, look, if my check bounces, I'm gonna get that $50. I'm gonna get that extra money because that is a issue, right? That there needs to be a consequence for that. Now, I get it, people's lives happen, but some people you'll notice that they have a pattern. They have a pattern of bouncing a check. They'll have a pattern of paying late. So, and landlords, is being a landlord, being in the real estate business, real estate industry, you want consistency, right? Cash flow is going to equal consistency. So unstable cash flow is kind of a weakness. Okay. And those are the tenants I always tell people just be wary of because it's going to cause a headache later down the line.
Yeah, if you don't know when it's coming in, or if they're going to reach out to you on the second of the month and ask you about a Cash App or a Zelle or this, that, the other, and then all of a sudden, well, hey, it was a holiday weekend and this, that, the other. It's Monday now. I know it's the 6th, but I couldn't get in touch with you because it was a holiday. But hey, I'll shoot you that Zelle right now. Oh, you're not going to charge me your late fee, and like, yeah, no, I am, right? Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep it all systematized and stuff like that. There's no questions and things like that. It'll reduce all that stuff. It'll make it a lot more predictable, right? You sort out those bad players quickly if they start racking up these late fees and different things like that too, right? Like don't 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 make a habit of waiving those things, and don't make a habit of like money's tight, cash flow's tight. Like I've got this repair that's got to be taken care of, man. You know, it's already the 8th of the month, man. Like where's your rent check and stuff like that? Calling to collect rent in order to pay for whatever like that happens for landlords, especially mom and pop landlords all the time, right? Like I got to go get these 2 rent checks so that I can pay for this hot water tank. Um, don't bend your rules and say, hey, I'll take Cash App this time, right? In order to make that happen, waiting a couple more days and pushing them to get them to do it the right way is going to be more important the first time that you allow somebody to step over that line, they will stomp over it every single month after that.
Yeah. So just be cautious. Make sure you understand that for every tenant, because then it becomes a consistency issue of a tenant saying, "Oh, well, you took cash from him, and you took this from him. Why can't you take it from me?" And then it's just a headache. So, as a landlord, again, we want consistency. We don't want the headaches. Sometimes it might be inconvenient. I get it. Um, I've done it once. I've seen it. I've seen it happen. Um, Sometimes I get it too because you have a tenant, you're like, man, I gotta go get this money because this person playing with me right now. Right? There comes a time where you're like, yo, I just gotta get this money. Like so, um, but at that point, you just want again make sure you're firm, fair, consistent throughout the whole process. All right. Stand down on whatever that fee is, make sure that they pay that. And here's the thing. We talking about tenants being late, etc. Because we'll venture off, but when you talk about tenants being late, there are chronically late tenants. I hope they might be watching this because they be watching on YouTube too. If you're watching, you know who you are. There are chronically late tenants, right? At this point, I might as well put in the lease that your rent is due on the 15th, but they pay their rent, right? Rain, sleet, sunshine, they pay their rent, right? Um, so as a landlord, that's kind of when you get out of the corporate structure, you can hit them with the late fee. But you want to know something? The tenants that pay just a little bit late, those are some of the tenants that watch the property for me. Those are the tenants that, two, they'll call me and say, "Hey, Ray, you might want to watch out for this guy. They're a little fishy." So payment is just one part of being a landlord. You got to have property management. You got to have those pieces in place. Sometimes your tenant could be the best property manager for you. So but when we get back to loss of certainty, sir, you need to be sure that you are going to get paid as a landlord. That is one of the biggest things. Right.
Also setting yourself up. You said firm, fair, and consistent. Right? Like if you're not that, especially at scale, when you start getting into having a portfolio of multiple properties or multiple tenants, and things like that. If you're not that across the board, you're opening yourself up for litigation, right?
Mhm.
Maybe not in like good old West Virginia where we're at, right? Because we're very much a landlord friendly state, but we got people from all over the country, and you get into places like New York and California and deep, 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 deep blue states, right? Like there are laws put in place that there are professional tenants out there waiting for you to cross that line. So always firm, fair, and consistent with every single tenant.
Yeah. Clarissa said, even if you inherit tenants who are used to landlords coming to physically collect rent, they can be trained to pay online or at bank, give them a late fee one or two times, and they'll fall in line. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, not everybody can adjust to your system. I have tenants who just, I have tenants who can't read. Okay. So they might not be able to pay online, but they know how to go to the bank and deposit money into an account. Okay. So that is just part of it. You have to understand your tenant profile, especially when you inherit tenants, because we could do a whole different show on just inheriting tenants, because that's a mess in itself. Um, but for the most part, make sure you're consistent throughout your whole process. I think that's the biggest thing. We want certainty in our portfolio.
They're going to be different in every investor too, right? Like everybody on this call and everybody listening may have different levels of what they're willing to accept and stuff like that. Like Ray says, hey, there are some people that just can't do it online, but they can absolutely go into a bank and stuff like that. That's not my process for my tenants. If you can't pay through my portal, then you can't be my tenant. Like that's just what it is, right? So everybody's got their own rules and processes and stuff like that. Figure out what yours is and stick to it. There's no right and wrong answer necessarily. I mean, there's definitely some wrong
There's some
answer,
wrong. There's some wrong.
but there's no perfect answer, I guess, is the question, right? Same thing with a risk tolerance, right? Like people buy at different numbers with different formulas from time to time. It comes down to your personal investment journey.
100%. Let's go next slide. And this is something that I was talking about is the operational breakdown where if your systems aren't right, again, you might not see the dispute. You might be like, okay, they paid, and then you never check. And meanwhile, they got the charge back. They're happy. They're like, oh, my landlord never called me about it. I guess we're good. And you're out of rent payment. You're out of mortgage payment. Especially if you got a heavier bank account or got a lot of properties flowing into one bank, it's definitely a time you can miss it if your systems aren't good. Um, and you might miss it for years, Might take you a year or two to catch up. I'll never forget this. It was a time my account was hacked. Didn't know it was hacked. Somebody went to Disney World on my account. It took a family of four to Disney World, got fast pass tickets and everything. I had no idea. Only reason I caught it, I was doing some bookkeeping. I was uh, I was probably like a year and a half late on bookkeeping. That's why I stress bookkeeping now. Um, and lady was like, "Yeah, it seems like you went to Disney World and you went to Florida." And I was like, "Yeah, I haven't been to Disney World in a long time." And she was like, "Well, it's here right now." I actually was able to dispute it and got it paid back. Um, but that's something that was a flaw in my system. So you want to make sure your systems are very tight. The more you scale, the more accounting becomes more complex. You got to get escalation done, right? And you have to stay on top of these things because the companies, they don't care. Nago doesn't care, right? Your rent ready or all those, they don't really care. It's just money that comes back out. They'll charge you if anything. They're going to get their money regardless. Um, their systems usually aren't designed for the reversal, so you want to make sure that you are cognizant to it. I know the way I have it set up in my portfolio and in my platform that I get emails. If a check bounce, I get 3 emails, right? And then it shows back up on the account and says negative as well. So I know what's going on. It'll try to reprocess the tenant's payment, I think up to 3 times. If on the third time it doesn't go back through, it's a hard charge then. And at that point, um, we have it set up so that the system will even disable them from using certain types of payment methods. All right. So if you bounce so many checks, you can't use your bank account anymore. It has to be a credit card, debit card, right? It has to be certified funds coming in and out directly. So, and they've charged a fee for that. Using ACH is kind of like a privilege because it's lower amounts, but they charge a premium fee for it. So, um, some people are just bad with money, ladies and gentlemen. You have to understand that like paying your rent should be like the top priority of every. This is where you live. Has to be top priority, above everything. So some people don't see it that way though. But it could be a breakdown for you and your company. So you just want to make sure again that you do catch it and you're able to see it early on.
I think a big thing about the if it does happen and stuff like that, like doing all the preventative measures to make sure that you're setting yourself up so it doesn't happen as much as possible. Because if it does happen and you have your systems and processes in place and you're able to catch it right when it does happen, it's still going to suck your time, right? You're still going to have to get on the phone. You're still going to have to talk to. It's still going to be that back and forth. And anyone in this room, you need to understand like the time is that's your most valuable asset that you guys have, right? That's the one that all of us have the limited amount of, right? There's plenty of properties all across the United States that you can invest in, all across the world that you can invest in. There's money everywhere, a bunch of money sitting on the sidelines right now, right? Like, so don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the opportunity of this property or that property. It's your time. Your time has to be valuable.
Yeah. Okay. Um, cool. We're good with this one. We can go on. I don't know if we have another one after this. Clarissa put this say passes CRM fees on the tenants, like door loop, avail, charge monthly fees. Do the tenants pay that direct? No matter what the tenants are paying. I don't know if he actually passes it directly to them, but no matter what, the tenants are paying it. Tenants do pay the processing fees for credit cards, though. I think that's what he was referring to. So those credit card processing fees are what the tenants pay. You can opt to pay the fees as a landlord too.
You
Um,
can.
I know most landlords will not because it is a convenience.
I made that
I've,
mistake one time.
I've had tenants ask me, right? Can you waive this 595 or $27 fee or absolutely not? Go on there, pay it. Right?
$60 fee.
Yeah. Well,
Well, $60 is because they're using a credit card and they're charging 3% or 4%. So if they use their bank account, ACH, which is why it's a privilege using your bank account, it's like $3 or something is the fee.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It is not my problem that you're using the most expensive service because you waited until the last second. Pay that service fee or make it late, pay your late fee and plan better. Right. I don't like negotiate at all when it comes to tenant payments and stuff like that. You do this, you pay through this. This is what it is. What the computer tells you is what you pay. That's it. We agreed to this. Here's your lease. It's in Anago. You go. You take care of it from there.
Yeah. Um, on the next slide, Seth. So just remember that the payment system sits between you and the rent, so you'll have money being held. Um, Rules are usually dictated by the platforms and the banks. So before, I know I used to get my money instantly. Now they have like a 2, 3 day hold, which I don't mind, whatever. I don't need it right then and there. But for some other landlords, they might be, hey, I gotta get this now, you know. Um, so those are things you just need to be cautious and cognizant about.
Sometimes
Um,
with the new, like a new tenant and stuff like that, that
or a
first,
new processing payment too. Like if
right,
they have a different, if you go from like credit card to like debit card or new card to ACH, they'll hold it a couple more days just to make sure it's legitimate, which protects you.
instead of a 2 day, it's a 10 day hold, right? And stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like,
That in itself should protect you that whole period. So just again, be cognizant, understand what's going on is going to be the biggest thing, especially with new tenants or even older tenants. You go ahead. Um, if you don't control the payment layer, you don't control the outcome. Now, again, I built systems that work for mine. Again, I mentioned, we send 3 emails. It tries to reprocess the payment. If it finally bounced, I get notification that it bounced, it didn't go through, and that gets sent to the team. You have to have a good system though, so that way those types of things don't slip through the tracks and or through the cracks, and then you have to track down payments. Um, and then stress test it. It's easier when you have a um, lower amount of tenants, but when you start to scale and you scale fast, you get stuck. Finding out that I have a credit card weighing options like $2 for ACH or pay $35 for the rewards built credit card, but the fee isn't eligible purchase. That's one thing people do, and I know there's a card called Built. You might want to look it up. And they are saying that that card is actually made to pay your rent. It's like an ACH account tied to it. You'll get bonus points, etc. There might be a fee for it, annual fee, but that is one thing they say is like built to get you points. Um,
I think
so
that
that's
when it comes to building the points and things like that, like all that is great, but like if it's going to cost you 33 in that scenario, right? $33 a month. Like, what kind of points are you actually getting? What kind of rewards are you actually getting to see almost $400 worth of value in a year for
yeah,
just that one transaction, right? Like that's kind of the math that you kind of look at and stuff like that. Like, I think 100%, if there's no difference between the two, then yeah, get the points. Like Ray and I do it all the time with the properties that we do, the materials that we buy and things like that. Like,
yeah.
you know,
Because Lowe's doesn't charge a different amount if you have a credit card or debit card. So at
right.
that point, take full advantage. But when you start hearing like, oh, we charge a 3% surcharge, that's when you should be like, huh. And if it's a bigger amount, like if it's, $3, all right, well, cool, I'll spend the $3. But you start talking about $10, $20, $30, at that point, that's where it hits you like, maybe I shouldn't spend that, right? I specifically want you guys to know I use credit cards for transactions when I need security, right? Because I will do a chargeback. I've done chargebacks on or on like HVAC companies. I don't know if you remember stuff. I had to do a chargeback on an HVAC company because he didn't do the work right, and then just wouldn't fix what I needed done. So we had to do a chargeback. So that's when we use that, and it's worth paying that fee for that protection, right? But
It's
for
like
your
an
rent,
insurance policy at that
yeah,
point.
yeah, that's pretty much what it's for. It's insurance policy. The points are great, um, but the points for credit card are usually specified, right? So if you're using like let's for example, you're using a Delta card specified for Delta. You want to make sure that you're using it for mileage. You're gonna make sure you're flying. Other purchases should be important, but you don't want to pay extra just for the right to use that card. So I would stay away from that. I would stick with the ACH. Just pay the $2 and do the ACH and just be free versus the credit card paying an extra $30. Usually they're gonna give you 2% cash back. So if you spend $1,000, 2% of 1,000 is gonna be what, $20? Is that correct? So if your rent's 1,000, they're gonna give you $20. You still lose because you paid 30, right?
Exactly.
So they haven't figured out where you lose in that end. Um, and so you just got to do that math equation before to make sure it's worth it. Lost $15 a month, yeah. So just do that math equation, make sure it's worth it, because it's usually like 2% cash back is the big one. Um, so I don't recommend if they're charging you a credit card processing fee, and that's unless it's the only option. But if it's not the only option, no. It is actually illegal in the United States, guys, just so you know, to charge a credit card processing fee for a debit card. Okay. So make sure that if you use a debit card that you let them know, hey, this is a debit card. Call them, let them know that. Debits is as good as cash, really. There might be a processing fee at $2-3, but
And
the credit card fee
there's
is
a handling fee. I used to sell credit card processing and stuff like that. And back then, this was a long time ago. But back then, it was like 35 cents per swipe if it was a debit card. And then it was 2.5% plus 39 cents for a swipe on a credit card. Right. And then Amex was like 4.5% or whatever it was. Right. Like, each one of them had their different ones, but you still got a per swipe, but you didn't have the 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 vendor didn't have a fee associated with it on the debit side, just the swipe.
Yeah. Okay. Just pay attention to that going forward, guys. Tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be talking with you guys, learning about what you have going on in your real estate journey. If you need the link, send us a message, send us a DM. We'll get you the link. Love to see everybody on there. Kind of be sharing some of the deals. We can probably even send some pictures, share you guys some pictures of our newest flip that we'll be doing so you guys can see actively what we are doing on a day-to-day period. Seth, you got a quote for us? Oh, next week, short-term rental versus long-term purchase math. All right, we'll go over that. You guys know I'm a big proponent. Don't buy it unless it flows for long-term. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Control the system, or the system will control your outcome.
100%. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you need the link, just send us a message. We'll get it over to you. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Y'all have a good one.